Welcome back, everyone, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki. This is my podcast where we talk movies, TV shows, and everything entertainment. This is episode 7, and we are talking Dune Part 2. This is the big one. 7 episodes in, I feel like this is the biggest one so far. This is the movie that, personally, I've been looking forward to this for 3 years. I've been avoiding any details of what happens kind of at the end of this, although it's a 60-year-old book that it's based off of, which actually I'm going to start reading today after I record this. Yeah, it's Friday, March 1st. I saw this last night in IMAX on opening night. Absolutely jam-packed house. I saw it with my best friend Seamus, and simply put, it was amazing. I am going to see it again on Tuesday night in IMAX because I need to see it in IMAX again, and it was a out-of-body experience. But before we get into Dune Part 2, hope you're well. Hope you had a good week. My week was crazy. Work was a little bit nuts. We had like a long day of conferences and local meetings and stuff like that with local council, which was, pretty fun to be a part of because you just see like local people trying to make a difference. But I'm very happy it's Friday. I get to enjoy my day off and do things I need to do for my dissertation, but also I record my podcast on Fridays. So there's lots of news to get to. So let's get right into that. Deadline are reporting that Beef Season 2 is looking to cast Charles Melton, Kaylee Spaney, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Anne Hathaway for their second season. It was Ali Wong and Steven Yeun in Season 1. If you haven't seen it, amazing show, highly recommend. Deservedly won awards this season, and I think there was like initial rumors that Season 2 was going to focus on completely different people. So Season 2 is going to be a completely different story. I hope it's about road rage or people that are pissing each other off in general, because that was such a fun thing to experience in Season 1 between the two of them just running into each other and kind of ruining each other's lives. But Charles Melton, who was amazing in May December, Kaylee Spaney, who was so good as Priscilla, I think a very underrated performance in the past year, Jake Gyllenhaal, who I think he's crazy, but he's a good actor, and then Anne Hathaway, who is just like one of my childhood crushes, who has always been one of my favorite actresses. She's in so many great things over the years. Devil Wears Prada was one of the first things I ever saw her with, and I actually love that movie. My girlfriend just read the book and watched the movie and said the book was very good, but I think it's quite different. Yeah, anyways, this is looking to be the cast of Season 2. What if it's like a younger couple and an older couple that are trying to like ruin each other's lives instead of just like Steven Yeun and Ali Wong in Season 1? What if it's like two couples that kind of have issues with each other and they start beefing? Literally, because that's a title. They start beefing. I think that could be a really cool setup for Season 2, and I feel like it'll probably release early next year. This is only casting rumors, so there's no like set to release when. It'd be very cool if it could come out soon though, because we need more good TV. And another big story that actually came out this week is Paramount, I believe it was Paramount that was putting out like all their slates for their films, and they finally announced that the long developing reboot of The Naked Gun with Liam Neeson is finally moving forward, which I'm so excited about. I love the Naked Gun movies, and it's going to be coming out July 18th, 2025. They also have a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle sequel that they're finally slating. I think it's 2026, and Paw Patrol. Not really into that, but the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles I was very excited about, and I think Naked Gun will be. I think it could be very funny. It has is it Akiva Schaffer? What's his name, from The Lonely Island? And I believe he wrote the movie. And I think actually Liam Neeson is a very funny guy. If you ever like listen to interviews with him, he's very reserved. But Leslie Nielsen was a dramatic actor before he did. I think before he did Airplane, and then after he like only did comedies. So And I think that they're so funny, and I've heard interviews where, like, Leslie Nielsen, I think he was on Conan when Conan was doing late night, they were talking about how, like, comedy, you can't let the audience know it's funny. You have to play it as serious as possible, like this is really happening. I mean, that seems very obvious, but just like Leslie Nielsen basically playing Airplane and The Naked Gun like they're actually detective movies and not, you know, the goofiest things in the world. I think that could be really funny, and I get that, like, you know, people are tired of reboots, but that's one I'm willing to make an exception for. I feel okay with that, and I'm excited to get kind of our first look at it, see what's going to be different about it, or is it going to be like the exact same story as the old Naked Gun movie? Speaking of long-awaited sequels or, follow-up movies, Jared Leto, who, is everybody's favorite, shared the first Tron Ares first look. And there's a story from Hollywood Reporter this week that Disney's long-awaited sequel with an AI-inspired storyline is shooting in Vancouver right now and targeting a 2025 release date. So basically the picture is like the suit from the background, and it's kind of a red and black theme this time. I think first movie was orange and blue and black, and same with Tron Legacy. And then this one is like all red and black. So it looks really cool. And if it has a Daft Punk soundtrack again, I mean, I'm in. It's hard to watch Jared Leto because I just find him so annoying and just a repulsive human being in general. But if Jeff Bridges shows up or something like that, that'd be crazy if they do an AI Jeff Bridges again. So we'll see what happens with that. Is it going to be an absolute flop and just like a crappy sequel that comes out after, I think the Tron Legacy was 2010, so this is going to be coming out 15 years after. And actually Tron Legacy came out a long time after the first Tron movie, so we'll see. Maybe they'll just keep doing these like every 20 or 15 years or whatever. But I think the news I was most excited about this week, which actually just came out yesterday, was that Superman Legacy finally showed the logo of the suit and actually changed the title. So yesterday, James Gunn, he posted on Instagram a picture of a very close-up picture of the logo of the suit with snow all around it, and he said, "Overjoyed to be announcing the start of principal photography on Superman today, February 29th, which just so happens to be coincidentally an unplanned Superman's birthday. When I finished the first draft of the script, I called the film Superman Legacy. By the time I locked the final draft, it was clear that the title was Superman, making our way to you July 2025. I mean, I thought Superman Legacy was a good title, but we've never actually had just a Superman titled movie, like just Superman, because the Christopher Reeves first one was called Superman the Movie. This is just Superman, and I think it's great. It's like a fresh start for DC, kind of going in a new direction. I actually saw a really crappy AI photo on Reddit today that people were like, "Oh, is this real?" of David Cornsweat's suit, and you could tell it was completely fake. But yeah, the logo itself, I mean, it has a really nice gold outline. I think the S is the Kingdom Come Superman, which is a really good storyline. So maybe it's like we're slowly kind of moving towards Kingdom Come Superman, or is the story going to be kind of a Kingdom Come situation? And the fact that snow is covering the suit hints at least at the Fortress of Solitude, which, I mean, I hope they fully just embrace full Superman-ness, make him this like friendly, neighborhood type hero, but also this like crazy man of hope that everyone can look up to, and then make Clark Kent just a bumbling idiot and like a goofy nerd guy. I really hope we do get like a super comic accurate Superman, and we don't get he's always all like I mean I love Henry Cavill, but I could not stand that version of Superman where he's just depressed all the time and like finds all of his powers to be a curse, blah blah blah. And I wasn't a fan of that. I think Superman needs to stand for hope, and the fact that like from the first movie he was depressed about his powers, that's not fun. Like, it's not fun to have all these superheroes just be depressed that they have all these powers. Sometimes you just want them to be hopeful and like see themselves as heroes and see it as an opportunity for responsibility. So yeah, that's coming out 2025. They started principal photography yesterday on the leap year day, so that's really cool, and I'm very much looking forward to that and seeing where DC is going. I mean, there was rumors about Warner Brothers was looking for someone to buy the company, but now they're not, and it was potentially going to be Paramount, but it's apparently they're not looking for that anymore. So I mean, we'll see. I hope DC Studios and James Gunn get a fair chance to make their universe, and I really hope it's good. And it looks like Marvel is kind of starting to get their shit together with how they're planning things. They're starting to actually hire good creative people that can be fully in charge of projects and implement their vision. And it looks like DC is looking to do that in the future in the same way. I mean, James Gunn doing the first movie, that says something because he wants to show his artistic vision, which he's always stood for. He's not really let Marvel get in the way of his Guardians movies. So yeah, I hope that's all good omens for the future of both DC and Marvel. And this is going to be the last story, and I saved it for last because this has actually made me very sad this week. Unfortunately, we lost Richard Lewis at the age of 76, the hilarious comedian, star of movies like Robin Hood, Men in Tights, but also one of the best cast members of Curb Your Enthusiasm, one of Larry David's best friends for life, and I believe he died of a heart attack this week. He had health problems in the last few years, but he was always so positive, so funny, so, I don't know, such a shining light on the show. And Larry actually said, Richard and I were born 3 days apart in the same hospital, and for most of my life, he's been like a brother to me. He had that rare combination of being the funniest person and also the sweetest, but today he made me sob, and I'll never forgive him. That is a very Larry goodbye, and it's, it made me sad because he was there from the start on Curb, and they're best friends, and it really does show in the actual series. Like, you can tell they're not even friends. They bicker and they make fun of each other like brothers would, and the relationship they had is very much like how my brother and I are, that like we just like crack jokes at each other, but we find each other so fun, or at least I find him very funny. So that made me very sad, and I'll never forget the first time I ever saw Richard Lewis was Robin Hood Men in Tights as the king or whatever, and he has the mole that moves around the entire movie, and Latricia. Oh, that's a very nice name. How'd you come up with Latricia? I'll never forget that. Something like that line that made me laugh so hard. Yeah, Richard Lewis, he can rest easy. I mean, literally just last weekend or 2 weekends ago, sorry, him and Larry were talking about being in each other's wills on the episode and how they've never been happier and stuff. And yeah, I think that's if that is his final scene ever, what a great way to go out, of him and Larry taking shots at each other. So I'll miss him very much, but I mean, he was 76, he lived a great life, and I think that's it for the news, because we have a lot to get into with Dune Part 2, which I've been waiting for 3 years, so let's do it. So Dune Part 2, the sci-fi adventure of 2 hours and 46 minutes. The synopsis is, Paul Atreides unites with Chani and the Fremen while seeking revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Facing a choice between the love of his life and the fate of the universe, he must prevent a terrible future only he can foresee. Of course, directed by Denis Villeneuve, a French-Canadian filmmaker, shout out him. He directed the first one, wrote the first one, and wrote the second one with John Spates. And I think they also wrote the first one together, and he has said he's already written the third movie, which is crazy, but I won't get ahead of myself. And the movie, of course, stars Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides, Zendaya as Chani, Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica, Javier Bardem as Stilgar, Josh Brolin as Gurney, Austin Butler as the newly introduced Feyd-Rautha, also newly starring Florence Pugh as Princess Irulan, Dave Bautista comes back as Rabin, Christopher Walken is the Emperor in this, Léa Seydoux is Lady Margot Fenring, Stellan Skarsgård is Baron Harkonnen again, Charlotte Rampling, who is like a legend of the acting world, is the Reverend Mother, and her face is covered the entire time, which is really funny and like crazy because just by her voice she's so recognizable, and she's such an iconic British actress. Then we have Suhaili Yacoub, who plays Shishakli, and she was really good in this. We get some Jamis back in it, and there's a cameo that I'll talk about in spoilers, but I won't say it now. Yeah, just a stacked cast. Like I said, it's a 2 hours, 46 minutes. It's currently rated 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, 9.1 on IMDb, 79% on Metacritic, just universally kind of loved across the board. It's been getting rave reviews. The movie picks up right from part one. Like, it's seamless. You could watch these back to back, and it's just a seamless transition. And I'm going to do non-spoilers first. And for a while, I'm going to really try to hide the spoilers until, I clearly say it. So non-spoilers. This is an action-packed movie. This is way more of a war movie than the first one, which I really love because the intensity just gets cranked to 11 in this movie. And I loved the first one, and tons of people complain about like pacing issues and that, which I understand because the third act does feel quite different from the first two in the first movie, but this one is seamless throughout, and there is like I could see no flaws in the pacing. It's so well done all around. And this isn't gonna just be a good movie for people that are, read the book of Dune, or even I think people that maybe weren't big fans of the first one, I think are going to love this one, because I do think overall it is a better movie. I think this one is just seriously a masterpiece. I turned to my friend Seamus last night as soon as the movie finished, and I said, holy shit, we just got The Empire Strikes Back of our time. Like, that is a sequel. That is how you follow up on a movie that, a lot of people already loved. This one, wow, does it deliver. It is, like I said, action-packed, space opera, war movie. It has it all. It has great emotional scenes, like just very intimate. It has not only huge scale battles, but it has great like hand-to-hand combat moments. It has like stealth missions. It has such nuanced acting and just dramatic moments as well as action. And honestly, it's really funny as well. Javier Bardem is hilarious in this movie, and it actually has a lot of great like comedic moments. And I mean, my theater was laughing really hard during the movie. It really does have it all. I saw it in IMAX, and I gotta say that just like augmented my experience even more. I think this would still be a gorgeous movie in like, you know, standard projecting, but like IMAX was crazy with this movie, and it's in the trailer, so I'll talk about it. But when Paul rides the sandworm for the first time, I had goosebumps when he finally nails it. The score kicking in, the IMAX ratio, but also I think this is possibly Greg Fraser's best work yet. This movie, there is some shots and some cinematography magic in this that, I mean, I think the Batman was some great work, Rogue One phenomenal, but like this movie has some of the craziest framing and shots I've literally ever seen on screen in front of me in the theater. You know, I think he's already got the Oscar nailed down for the next year. Which last night before the movie even started, I said to my friend Seamus, I was like, oh, like the Oscars are literally a year from now from when this movie is coming out. And he was like, well, Everything Everywhere All at Once like swept the Oscars, and it came out in March, and we were both like, wait, did it? And we were like, holy shit, yeah, it did. I mean, another great movie that's coming out in March, and I think it'll keep momentum going until the next Oscar season, to be honest. So yeah, beautifully shot. Getty Prime, where the Harkonnens live, it's all shot like they have a black and white sun, so everything that's out in like the daylight is all in black and white. And the gladiator scene with Austin Butler that's in the trailers, I'm not giving anything away, crazy, like some of the craziest looking stuff in the world. And like you see when people go into the shadows out of the sunlight, it returns back to like fully in color, and it's just some of the most nuts filmmaking in the world. Like Denis Villeneuve is such a master, but also like props to Greg Fraser and all of his units that work on this movie, and everyone that helped put this together. Just a master. Like it's such an A+ movie. And there's like, you know, there's one shot of Paul going through a crowd of fanatics, and it's like an overhead shot, and it just shows a packed crowd, and they're all just slowly separating for him, and it's one of the most gorgeous shots. It's, oh my god, it's really wild. Like you're just sitting in the theater, and I don't think my mind left the story the entire time we were in the screening. Like there was no moment where I was like, oh, I wonder what time it is. I was just like, oh, it's over. Like that was 2 hours 46 minutes I could watch, like the first one. For me personally, the first one, I was like, I could have 10 more hours of that. And right after, Seamus and I turned to each other, we were like, I could watch that again like right now. And I already, when I got home last night, bought my tickets for Tuesday night. So just great. And I briefly touched on it, but the score during like the worm scene, the score overall in this film is like the first one, absolutely amazing. But I want to give a particular note to the theme that goes with Chani and Paul whenever they're like having scenes together. It's kind of like it's like the Han and Leia love scene, you know, or the love score story, and every scene that they have, like it's just so iconic and memorable. And it struck me so well how gentle it is at first, but then it really kicks in, and it's no spoilers, but it's like their relationship. It like only turns up in intensity, and it turns into more, you know, loudness and in your face, and it just oh man, just crazy. Hans Zimmer does it again, even though I don't know, there's some skeptical things about that, like he kind of uses minions, and he doesn't really do all of his own work. He kind of just like directs and brings it all together. So whoever did the score with Hans Zimmer, amazing. After you watch the movie, listen to the soundtrack. Its beginnings are such delicate times. That's like the background score to Paul and Chani, and it's just it's mesmerizing. But also, I think what's so great about this movie is it knows when to pick its moments. Like Denis Villeneuve and Hans Zimmer and everyone in this knows when just the timing of things is really great. Like there's, during all the action sequences, very often the music will like cut out completely, and we're just hearing the sound of the action and the dialogue. And then when something, you know, big happens, so I'll use the worm scene as an example, because that's in the trailer. If you went to Dune 1 in IMAX, they showed that as the preview at the end. It's not a spoiler. It's like all over the marketing that the Paul rides the worm. And it's such like a minor part of the story, basically. So the music for a lot of that scene just gets like completely cut out, and then as Paul's struggling on the worm, the music starts to intensify, and then when he finally stands up, it just kicks in like that iconic yelling score that just, oh my god, like I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it right now. In the theater in IMAX, it's so loud and it's so awesome. It will rock your socks off. Okay, yeah, pacing's perfect, score is awesome, some of the best cinematography. I mean, Hoyt van Hoytema would be gushing over this, because it's just, and that's one thing in the marketing I will talk about, that like Denis Villeneuve and Christopher Nolan, they appear to be very good friends, and I just love how they're gushing over each other's movies, and it's not competitor type thing. I think filmmakers should all be raising each other up, because this is an industry that just like needs to keep going, and we need more films like this, like Oppenheimer, like Barbie, things that are gonna bring in people and unite us all in. That's why I love the movies. It is a universal experience. And if you listen to that weirdo Quentin Tarantino, he gave an interview on Colbert once, and Colbert asked him, why do the movies matter? And he's like, well, when you watch it at home, it's kind of a dispensable experience. You can throw it away, you can experience that 100 times. But when you go to a theater, you buy a ticket, you're interested enough to leave your house, you go into a room, and like once those lights go down, it's such a unifying experience. And like that's what I felt last night. Everyone in my screening, other than one girl in front of me, checked her phone a couple times, which was annoying, but there were people of all ages there, of like all demographics. It's just such a unifying experience, and this is why I do this. Like, I just love that experience of, we're all gonna sit here in silence and just get lost in this journey, and that this movie transports you so well. Like, it's just phenomenal. Okay, let's talk about the performances, because I think there are some career bests in this movie, in one person in particular who is already known so iconically for the role they did in the past that even has changed his DNA perhaps, and his voice permanently. But I'll start with the main character, Timothée Chalamet. So powerful. He plays the conflicted aspect even better in this film. Like, he's only, I think everyone in this film is so flawless in bringing it from part 1 to part 2, and it really does play like just one movie. And that's like, because it is, part 1 and part 2 are just the first Dune book, which actually I'm starting to read today. Everyone does such a flawless transition from movie to movie that it really does keep that seamless, like we're just following the exact same theme. And yeah, Timothée Chalamet, he brings so much power to this. And there is a moment, no spoilers, that like you see kind of a flick of the switch in him, and he's so different for the rest of the movie, and he's honestly so pissed off, he's so like scornful, and just phenomenal. In spoilers, I'll talk more about it. Zendaya as Chani, such a fascinating performance. You can see she's so just conflicted, like Paul. She's conflicted the whole time. Is he, Lisa Al Gaib as Stilgar is, preaching the whole time, and Lady Jessica's saying as well and spreading this propaganda. Yeah, Zendaya, it was so awesome to just have more of her other than in Visions and just the end part. Like, she's so good throughout all of this. She brings such an intensity and like intelligence to her character of questioning everything. And what I really like about her is her character. She loves Paul. She's in love with who Paul is and that he's different from other foreigners. And she doesn't love that he might be the Messiah. She loves him for who he is and not who he could be. And you can just tell they have such great chemistry, and you can tell it's from the friendship that they have in real life. I really loved her performance in this. And another great performance was Lady Jessica, who is completely opposite to Chani's kind of demeanor. She is so sneaky and such a trickster, and just she's nuts in this movie. She plays a witch. She's literally a witch in this, and Rebecca Ferguson nails it. Like I said, Javier Bardem, hilarious. He's Stilgar. He's so funny the way he is just Paul's like ride or die the entire movie, like thinking he is the Messiah every time he does something. And it's so funny. I'll talk about some more like specific things about him within spoilers. Just quickly, I want to give special mention to someone. I'm going to save them for last, but the kind of smaller roles of Florence Pugh, Stellan Skarsgård, Christopher Walken, Léa Seydoux, Dave Bautista, Josh Brolin. They're all the like kind of more minor characters, even though the Baron is very important, and the Emperor, but like they're not as much of the focus in this movie, but they're all perfect in their roles. Like they nail it with the time they get. And I mean, there's so many great supporting performances. Florence Pugh is she's such an intriguing character. She really, just her intelligence comes through, and she feels so calculated in her performance. And I just loved her. I think she was a great addition to this film, as is the person I want to give special mention to, Austin Butler as Feyd-Rautha. He is absolutely terrifying in this movie. His introduction scene actually had me scared. Like you can tell he's absolutely nuts. He's nuts, and he's just a ruthless, assassin, and he's the nephew of the Baron. He has such an aura and like a swagger to him, and he does the Stellan Skarsgård Baron voice so well. It's so freaky. Yeah, his voice is just, and there is like two lines where you could kind of hear a bit of Elvis coming through / Austin Butler, but he was probably for me the standout performer of this film, which like I think a lot of people owe him an apology possibly of saying he was just gonna be goofy and sound like Elvis. I think just the whole cast, we really do have the next generation of great performers with Timothée Chalamet, Florence Pugh, Zendaya. No doubt Zendaya, she's already a superstar. All these people are. And Austin Butler, I think they are like the next cast of just they're gonna be winning everything in the future. I think they're so great in this, but Austin Butler in particular, just every scene he's in, you're on the edge of your seat like, oh, this guy's absolutely nuts, and he has just no restraint in the violence that he's willing to participate in, and he plays I think it really is one of the great villains of our time. Josh Brolin was fantastic as Thanos, and this performance just eclipses that by so much. Like Austin Butler is one for the generations in this. The scale of the film, it only builds on the first one even more. It's so great. Like you see, and this film is all about like the North Arrakis and South Arrakis, and the South is where the fanatics live, and it just feels like the scale of the world, and honestly the universe or galaxy itself as well. It builds so well, and I think that part one laid such a great foundation world building wise that this movie could only flourish because, and actually even if you hadn't, I don't know, seen the first one, I feel like you could watch this movie and be like, oh yeah, I get it, because Florence Pugh's character does like a great summary in the opening scene of what just happened in part one. Like this film picks up literally the next morning after Dune part one, and does such a flawless, like seamless entry into part two. And I really love that like every character in this film feels like they have an arc. Everyone, I don't really feel like there's anyone in this film that like, oh yeah, I wish we got more of them. Everyone makes the most of the time they have in this story. The big hitters like Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Austin Butler all have really crazy arcs, but like even the smaller characters like Florence Pugh, she's not really in this a lot, but all the scenes she's in, every time it focuses on her, you can't draw your attention away because it's just like you really do see the story through her eyes in many ways. And everybody leaves you wanting more, and with no spoilers at all. I'll talk about just how the ending made me feel. I was so satisfied, but I instantly wanted more. Like I could watch 10 more hours, but not only, I think there's more story to be told. And there's like I think Frank Herbert wrote 6 books himself, or maybe 5, and then I think his son took over when he passed away in 1986. So I'm very ready for Dune Part 3, Dune Messiah, which was the next book, and I think it'll be fantastic. So overall, would I recommend this movie for people to go see? 1000%. I would die for this movie. This is, if anyone is going to go to the theater and see a movie, it should be this, because this is what making movies and watching movies is all about. Like this is some crazy shit. Like it is, I would happily pay $20 to go see this movie in IMAX, and I'm going again on Tuesday. I might see it a third time in another theater. I don't know, it's just so great. It's such a great story to experience. I think I'm gonna move into spoilers now, so if you haven't seen it, go see it, pause this episode, go see it, come back, or if you don't care, because after all, it is a 60-year-old book. For example, I'm not spoiling anything yet, but like I basically know, or I knew going into it where the story goes, loosely, just because of like knowledge of the past, like in the book kind of. I knew roughly where we were going to end up, but I didn't know where all the pieces were going to exactly lie. And also the great thing is this is like an adaptation of the book, so it doesn't end up the exact same. A lot of characters are completely different from how they are in the book, and that's why I'm excited to read the book. honestly, I only read for university so much during undergrad and my master's because I had to. But this is a book that I'm finally going to pick up just like out of pleasure because I really want to see where it goes. Like one of my friends, Brett, he read it last summer, and I told him I was reading it now, and he's like, yeah, you're going to like it. So, and my brother said, you know, 2 of his friends have read it. They absolutely loved it. And it's an iconic book. So I'm really excited to pick it up this weekend. And I wouldn't be shocked if I finished it faster than I will give myself credit for, because like when I am enjoying something, when it comes to like entertainment, so like movies, TV shows, I tend to just binge it. I'm not good at like, okay, no, I'll save another episode for tomorrow. And honestly, that goes for reading as well. Like when I read graphic novels and stuff, I tend to just rip through it because I'm just enjoying it so much. So yeah, a great adaptation. I'm excited to read the book and see the differences, how the characters differ. Now I'm going into spoilers. This is it. I'm in spoilers. If you don't want to know, get out of here, skip to the end. If you do want to know, you can stick around, whatever. The opening scene right away at the start, which picks up right from part 1, it's Paul and Lady Jessica with their first day with the Fremen, and there's, you know, the Harkonnen soldiers are coming, and they do such like a great assault. It's not the opening scene, but it's the first scene like after the title card, kind of, where we the first scene with Paul and Lady Jessica and the Fremen, and like, oh my god, it's so tense. You're so intense during it. I was sweating right away. My heart was pounding. But the cinematography in particular, oh sorry, my dog is moving end to end on the couch trying to find her spot. Anyways, the cinematography, it's so like orange because it's like the sun going down on Arrakis, or the eclipse or whatever. It looks gorgeous, and you're in for a crazy ride when, you know, the second scene in the film is already that intense. And that intensity of like the first and second scene, just it maintains pace the entire story and only picks up for the final fight. So the ending of the film is, you know, all the royal houses are all coming to Arrakis to gather in the south and discuss like what is to happen or whatever. And, you know, Paul Atreides, he goes full on nut job anti-hero in this movie. Timothée Chalamet goes crazy and just embraces the Messiah role because, you know, he is the Messiah. And so the end scene is a fight between him and Austin Butler as Feyd-Rautha, and they're cousins, because turns out Timothée Chalamet and Lady Jessica is the daughter of the Baron. But that final fight, my heart was beating out of my chest. I knew that Timothée Chalamet was, you know, Paul Atreides is going to win this fight because we need more movies, but I was sweating and I was so nervous because it's just so intense, and it's just like, it feels like the tension has been building up the entire film of, oh, Paul the Messiah? He is the Messiah. Oh no, he isn't. He doesn't want to be the Messiah. But then like Timothée Chalamet's performance just elevates like crazy. He plays such an intensity. He plays kind of arrogance. He's an anti-hero. He just wants to lead people to war, and he becomes crazy. He goes crazy. And that final fight, like at the start, it's just, it's so like the music cuts out and it just becomes such like a quiet, tense moment, and it's everybody in the room of, you know, the Emperor's people and the princess, and then the Fremen and the Bene Gesserit and all the Harkonnens are all in the room about to watch the 2 fighters fight to be Emperor. And Timothée Chalamet does he does the Atreides family knife salute that Duncan Idaho did, but he also does the Fremen phrase of "May thy knife chip and shatter." And then Austin Butler, and this just like speaks to kind of the cockiness and the swagger that his character has. He says it back, but he emphasizes "thy knife," and that scene is crazy. They are just, and they've talked about this in the press, they're just beating each other's asses. Like, it's so intense. And Timothée Chalamet, you know, he gets stabbed twice, but just like his fight with Gurney, he remembers his training, and it's the slow blade that penetrates the shield away from attention. And when he, you know, we see that knife go in slowly, he earns the respect of Feyd-Rautha, and he says, you're a good fighter, Atreides, or, you know, good fight, something like that. And it's awesome. Just the final scene is, it's phenomenal. It's so good. And, you know, I think just Timothée Chalamet, just following him is like our beacon through the story. You know, the whole kind of first 2/3 of the movie, he's kind of pushing away power. He doesn't want to be the Messiah, but he realizes like the opportunity that comes with it, but he doesn't want to accept it, because then he realizes, if I'm going to be the Messiah, if I'm going to be in power, and basically what the theme of these movies are, and I guess the book is, with power comes sacrifice. You cannot have power without making sacrifices, both for yourself and causing the pain and suffering of others. So at one point he just like flicks that switch and he's willing to sacrifice whatever. And that's because the Fremen are, especially Chani, is convincing him that he needs to go south with everyone. And his visions are telling him that if he goes south, there's going to be a holy war. You know, he's the one that leads the way, the Lisa Al Gaib, which Javier Bardem, it's, oh my God, so funny the entire movie. He's just like such a simp for Paul the whole time. And you know, he's being like, oh, as it's written. Everything that Paul does is so funny because Javier Bardem, like, it's just like, oh my God, he did it. That's just like what the Messiah would do. But then Paul like tells everyone, no, I'm not the Messiah. And then it cuts to Javier Bardem. He's like, well, he is the Messiah because only the Messiah would be humble enough to say he's not the Messiah. So it's I saw a great clip on Twitter of Monty Python where he's like, I'm not the Messiah. And everyone's like, only the Messiah would say that. He's like, all right, fine, I am the Messiah. And then everyone starts praising him as the Messiah. Just so funny. Javier Bardem is so great in this. There's just so many great reveals and twists in this. If you haven't read the book, like we find out Paul is a Harkonnen, and this is after he drinks the life poison, and he says, well, if I'm a Harkonnen, we're gonna fight like Harkonnens. And like he is such a great, just like all encompassing of all the bloodlines basically, and just like so great. After he basically dies and Chani brings him back to life, they have such a tough relationship because you can tell they love each other, but she wants him to fight but doesn't want him to like betray the Fremen, obviously, and she has to convince him like, no, you have to go south, like this is our only chance for safety. And he just tells her like, I'll go south, but what happens there, like I'm not, I'll do what I must when we go south. He says, I'll go south, but I'll do what I must, and like I'll love you as long as I breathe. And it's clear that he loves her throughout the entire movie, even at the end when he says to the Emperor, I'll marry your daughter, Florence Pugh, and like take on reign as the Emperor after I win this fight, and like you have to bow to me. He becomes the Messiah in the end. Is crazy, he's the anti-hero, but like Chani is really pissed off and stays on Arrakis. It's just it's a wild conclusion, and you see like Paul slowly realizing that like we can't really destroy the Harkonnen, and like I am a Harkonnen, so I need to fight like one, but like there is no power without sacrifice, without backstabbing, without pain. So I kind of just need to accept my fate. And that's what I love about these movies, is it's all about free will versus fate. And you can see, like I said, the first 2/3 of the movie, Paul is fighting so hard to hold on to Chani. You know, they're doing this all for each other and for actual freedom, and he wants to lead the Fremen to their own freedom, but then he realizes like the role he has to take through the throne, and that's really the only way to free Arrakis. And Paul just kind of like, he's absolutely ruthless in this movie. You know, he kills what turns out to be his grandfather, and he has the coldest line delivery. So he stabs the Baron in the neck and says, you die like an animal, and then rips the knife out. And it says like, leave his body in the desert where, the desert will take care of his body. And just crazy. Like Timothée Chalamet, he brings it in this movie. He is so good, and like there's only little seeds in the last movie and in like kind of the start of this movie that he does have like a dark side, and he's willing to he lets it show sometimes, but the last third he's just fully letting go. Like after he has the drink of the poison of life or whatever, you know, the drink of life that the Bene Gesserit give him and the Fremen from the sandworm poison or whatever, he basically just embraces, you know, there's like a flick where it goes from faith to fanaticism, and he goes and talks to all the fanatics, and he just walks in and they're like, only the leaders can talk, and he just straight up tells them like, I am your Messiah. I know everything about you. I know about all of your bloodlines. I've seen the future and the past. I know my bloodlines. And he goes right up to a guy who like looks like he wants to fight him and says, I know your grandmother died when this planet had an old ancient name of the Fremen, Dune. And it's the sickest. They drop the name of the movie. You know, oh, he said the title, we can go home. It's such a sick scene. And there's just, man, I could ramble about this movie all day. There's so many scenes that could just be highlighted. Like, I think Vanity Fair or Variety does a thing where they invite performers and directors to come in and just do notes on a scene, like just talk about a scene. I don't even know what scene they would do in this movie, because there are so many that will just be shown at, you know, award shows, shown on talk shows. There's so many great scenes. Every scene. There was no scene where after I was kind of like, okay, anyways, back to the action I really care about. Like it's it's really great. It feels like books in chapters in a book. It's just every scene has such a great purpose and so much power behind it. I loved it all. Rebecca Ferguson, who this week talked about actually how she had a co-star or a lead on a film who was like shouting at her or whatever, and the internet swore to protect her. She's so great in this movie as Lady Jessica and just like manipulating the prophecy and stuff like that with the Bene Gesserit, who Florence Pugh turns out she is a Bene Gesserit. And like I said, Florence Pugh has such a calculated and intelligent performance. She's so brilliant in this movie. And she has like just so many great quotes like oppression only makes religion flourish, and you can't kill a prophet because then the prophecy only grows more. I loved her. She's really not in the movie that much. Like she's kind of only planning what's to happen with Arrakis with the Emperor, because he's refusing to do anything. So she kind of takes control a bit with the Bene Gesserit, and she's so brilliant in this. Oh my God, I cannot wait for the next movie and like they end up together, Paul and Princess Irulan in the end. And there's just so many great performances in Florence Pugh with the very limited screen time she has. She is brilliant in this movie. And like there's not only great like little intelligent moments and just like one-on-one dialogue moments. I mean, the dialogue is fantastic in this movie, but just like I said before, the scale of the action. I'm not a big Lord of the Rings fans, but the action in those movies is phenomenal, like the battle sequences. And I think this movie really does like rival some Lord of the Rings type action, because like there's a spice rig attack where Paul, Chani, and some other Fremen are attacking one of the Harkonnens' spice rigs. And just, again, the use of music in that scene of, like, knowing when to cut the music out. And, they fire a launcher, and Paul is being all strategic with Chani, and they're just like these two young fighters, like kind of trying to find themselves, but also you can see that this is like a building of the relationship moment with them. And I really love the moment where they fire the launcher at the ornithopter at the Harkonnens that are in the air, and the music just cuts out, and you hear them like running away, and Zendaya or Chani is giggling because it's like, oh, we got him, like this is so freeing, and like we're fighting back. And then the music kicks in and the ship blows up inside the shield, and it's just such a spectacle. It's so great. Like, yeah, Zendaya's just a badass in this. Oh my God, she's awesome. And Lady Jessica's a badass as well. The use of the voice in this one, the Bene Gesserit like ability to use the voice, not only is Lady Jessica so awesome when she uses it, but Paul's use of it, he screams at the Reverend Mother silence at the end during the fight, and it's like I felt the theater shake. Like it was like listening to like a family member argue with another family member. It was like, oh shit, it's about to go down. Like this is intense. I'm gonna go stay over at a friend's house tonight because this is uncomfortable. Yeah, Paul just embraces the full Messiah and basically tells everyone to shut up except him, because he's in charge now. He needs to, see the future through and ensure his bloodline lives on. And I mean, yeah, speaking of voices, Austin Butler's voice is phenomenal, and he has some great lines. Like right before he's gonna fight Paul Atreides, he says, like, Paul tells him, well, cousin, like this is it. And that's when he finds out that, like, he tells Feyd-Rautha that they are cousins, and he says, oh, cousin, like, well, that's all right. It won't be the first time I've killed a family member. And then during the fight, he's absolutely just giving it to Paul Atreides, just kicking his ass. He's already stabbed him once, and then he looks at Chani and he tells Paul, like, oh, is that your pet? Oh man, they're just like, the shit talking is so good in that scene. And it's just, there's no music in that scene. It's just them fighting and everyone in the room reacting, and then, like, we feel like we're with everyone in the room reacting. We're all spectators of this gladiator fight. It's phenomenal. It's one of the best like one-on-one fights. I love the fight in the last movie with Jamis at the end where him and Paul are duking it out, and this one is literally a duking it out because they're both dukes and going to become who's going to be emperor, and this is literally a fight for the fate of the galaxy. It's phenomenal. It's so well done. It's just the intensity and the choreography is so awesome, and how it's framed within this room. Like, it doesn't feel like we're on a film set. It really feels like we are in like this castle with, all of these people waiting to find out what the future holds. And one scene that, like, I feel like really got a reaction out of everyone in my crowd, at least I felt that, was Anya Taylor-Joy shows up as Paul's sister during during one scene, and it's the future of the bloodline, and you see that, like, she has the blue eyes of the Fremen, and it's it's really cool, and it's only like a 10-second scene. Then she's talking to Paul and saying like, I love you, it's like do what you must and stuff like that, and it's haunting. It's really cool. And I know she showed up at the premiere and everybody kind of knew who she was going to be roughly, but nobody was talking about it, even though we all knew she was going to be in it. It was really great. I really love that cameo scene. So I'll wrap it up with final thoughts here. Honestly, I do think this is the best sci-fi movie I've seen in the theaters. And this is going to be a generational film, I think. This one was just crazy. The production design, again, A+, like the sound design, the directing, the performances, everything just ties together so well. And I do think this movie is better than the first one. Last night I was like, do I think so? And that's just because the first one is one of my favorite movies. But now I think this one is going to be one of my favorite movies over the last one. Like, the last one was such a great world building film that builds an intensity. And now we're only just expanding like the world and the universe and the characters themselves and kind of getting resolution and seeing Paul become Lisal Gaib, and he gets his Usul, he gets his name, and just like you see just the evolving Paul Atreides in this movie become just this maniac, and I love it. This was absolutely 5 stars out of 5 stars for me. I think this was one of my favorite movies in recent memory. Like, it's crazy that 3 years in a row for me, I've got The Batman, Oppenheimer, and Dune Part 2, which have just all been amazing movies to me. And the year before that was Dune Part 1. Like, I've had 4 years in a row where I've had movies I've absolutely adored and have watched multiple times. And yeah, this was really great. And I have some Letterboxd reviews I want to read about this. The first one was Dune Part 2, 5 stars. Watching this in IMAX while fisting the Dune popcorn bucket is the correct way to watch. This is what the movies were made for. Yeah, that popcorn bucket, it wasn't at my theater. I was kind of disappointed, but not that I would ever buy it. Reese, who is like a TikTok influencer, content creator, he's a guy with a film camera. He said, Dune Part 2, 5 stars. My favorite part of the film is when Timothy and Austin Butler have a literal knife fight over who gets to be the next white boy of the month. Yeah, like, we have like 2 of the biggest stars right now of, our generation, and they're just like 1v1 showdowning in one of the biggest movies that we've seen in a long time. It's crazy. It's so awesome. Another 5 stars. The end credits were rolling, and I was just seated there with my popcorn bucket wondering, what are we? Oh my god. Yeah, that popcorn bucket has got so much attention from like even the stars of the movie, as well as the poems that Josh Brolin's putting out about, wanting to kiss Austin Butler and Timothy Chalamet. What a weird thing, but they're all best friends. Okay, the last one I'll read. Dune Part 2, 4 stars. Stellan Skarsgård as the Whale Part 2. Yeah, he plays even more of like a disgusting blobby beast in this, and Paul, or I think it's Paul, like cuts his live or no, actually he's dying before Paul even walks in. But yeah, his death is pretty wild in this, and you see the ants eating him in the deserts of Arrakis. Yeah, a lot of great moments in this. So that's Dune Part 2. Wow, I'm so sad it's come and gone. I was looking forward to this movie for 3 years, and I wish I had one of those Men in Black forgetter things that I could go back and just watch this. Although I would do that for every movie that I love. I would just forget it and go back. Or with Madam Web, I would just forget it and never watch it again and try to forget that it exists. Like, just the palate cleanser of going from Madam Web to this 2 weeks apart is crazy. Like, this year, I've seen Argyle, Lisa Frankenstein, Madam Web, and now Dune Part 2. Like, the variation in quality on that scale is crazy. So this was no doubt 5 stars and my favorite movie of the year so far. And I'm like, what else is going to top this movie this year? Like, I think we have some crazy stuff coming out, but I really don't see what can top it now. What else did I watch this week? I finished The Pacific, which is kind of like a Band of Brothers sequel, because of course Masters of the Air is on right now, which I'm loving week to week. Another great Austin Butler performance. I think he's really good in that, and that's on right now, and I'm really enjoying that. Yeah, The Pacific was really awesome. I obviously studied history, but like, I wasn't just watching like war movies and reading all these war books for pleasure. But now that I'm like done my degree, I kind of want to like keep learning history, because you kind of find your passion, and you don't know what you got till it's gone, as they say. And like, I'm gonna miss just being like engulfed in historical studies every day, but also my work kind of helps with that because I am a historian. What else did I watch this week? I also watched Curb Your Enthusiasm, as I said. Such a good episode this week. Oh my God, it's so funny. I think the first one was like good and I was happy with it, but we've only got better like every week. I mean, the Long Ball Larry is so funny this week. I highly suggest watching the new season and the final season actually. Actually, tonight I'm going to start Survivor Season 46, which I'm very excited about. I'm very excited to watch with my girlfriend. She's gotten super into Survivor. I've been watching it like my whole life, basically, other than during university for a couple of years. I didn't have cable or satellite or whatever, and I couldn't find it online. But now I'm like reconnecting with Survivor these last couple of years, and it's so awesome. Yeah, so much good stuff to watch. I think I'm going to watch Shogun as well, which just came out on Disney Plus and it's getting great reviews, and it looks so great. I'm very excited for that. Yeah, I think that's the episode, guys. That's episode 7, and you can rate and review on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Acast, wherever you're finding this podcast and all your podcast player of choices. This is also on YouTube. You can like, subscribe, comment, and what did you think of Dune Part 2? Let me know. What do you think of, the Superman suit? What did you think about the news this week? What do you think we're going to get Dune Part 3 anytime soon? You can email me at watcherofallthings@gmail.com, or you can just comment on the YouTube page. Just go to the episode and comment there. Why not follow me on Letterboxd at KikiJ70? You can see all my reviews right away. Basically, it's all going to be linked in the show notes. I have all my links there. Thank you so much for listening. Next week, who knows, really? I think that Ricky Stenicki movie or whatever is coming out with Zac Efron and like John Cena. Maybe I'll watch that, but I have no clue what's up next week, but I'm looking forward to it already. Thank you so much for listening again. I will see you in the next one.